What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to JustNutz, guys. Today, I got a little video talking about five, well, I guess technically it's 6 decks, but I lumped 2 of them sorted together. We've got 6 decks here that I think are pretty underrated at the moment. On different levels, I think, but for the most part, I think all of them are underrated in some way, shape, or form. So I made a list here, and we're gonna go through why I think they're underrated, why I think they're better than where people think they are, and you know, why maybe you should give them a try if you've been looking down on them and maybe you like the deck, but you thought maybe I don't think it's good enough. I don't think this. I all think they're fine rogue options, but I think at the end of the day, you know, it's all relativity, right? And this is my opinion, of course, so feel free to disagree. If you think one of these decks is trash, totally fine. That's the whole point of this video, is to maybe persuade you. So let's jump right into it. I don't want to waste too much time talking about nothing. So we'll start here with Harpies. It's no secret. Harpies got their new Link monster, Harpy Conductor. She's actually not that great of a card, I will say that, but I do think she is important for a couple things. And I think the deck, I think it's important to remember some things about the deck that I think are easy to forget. First thing is that with Salamangreats being very bad now, with Strikers being okay. I mean, actually, Strikers is good, actually, for this deck. But what's important is this deck kind of dominates, has a very strong matchup against any deck that plays a lot of back row. And with a lot of the power drop, or the ceiling of a lot of these decks, a lot of the decks that were running the meta dropping, I think this deck has a much better chance, because you see a lot of these other decks rise up, and a lot of the decks that were right on the tipping point, right on the edge of maybe climbing up into playability, were decks like Pendulum Magicians. You can just you're popping scales for free, and turn 1, if you just resolve, you go first and you resolve Harpy's Feather Storm, sorry. Like, they don't do anything. They literally don't do anything that turn. Maybe they try and play some beatdown, but I doubt it, because Harpy summon beat sticks themselves. So like, you probably just go, and then if you can get to your field spell, you're just gonna be popping their scales, and then they're just gonna run out of resources at that point. Which is really nice. You look at stuff like True Dracos, Sub-Terrors, trying to see Strikers is still going to be relevant. Salamangreat's actually still set, or just place spells and traps on the field. You're clearing off the Sanctuary. You're clearing their back row, or at least baiting out negates or baiting out pops that they might not want to use that early. Stuff like that. Very, very good. I don't know, just against all the decks that play those heftier amount of back rows. Paleozoics are going to see. We'll get there. But are going to see some increase in play. But I think Harpies are definitely slept on. I think they're a lower tier rogue option, but I do think they're a rogue option nonetheless. I took them to literally one locals like 3 weeks ago, and I got top 4 at it. It was like a 20-person locals. I went 4-1. I beat a Draco. I beat 2 Salamangreats when they were still at full power, and I beat a Dino Mist deck, and then I lost to one True Draco, but that was literally round 1, and I didn't know how to play the matchup, and I played True Draco in the last round and was able to get the win because I changed my perspective on it. So definitely don't sleep on Harpies. They're definitely better than you think, and because they do some spicy things. Next up on here, number 4, we've got Black Wings. Like, I don't know why people sleep on this deck. I still think it's a fine deck. I don't think they really have lost much with the ban list. I don't think anything specific to this deck. At the end of the day, you've got a deck that can put down a 3,000 beat stick that is unaffected by all card effects, everything, and also can wipe the board, essentially. Can wipe your opponent's monsters off the field, like a Raigeki. And when you have something like that, it's just so insanely strong. You've got very nice combo pieces that just drop themselves on the board, super maneuverable in those senses, spamming the board, putting a lot of damage on board at once. Very offensive deck, not really for going first. I guess you can go first, but it's like not great. But going second, definitely very good. And yeah, I just think it's slept on a little bit. When you have something like that, you know, and when the ceiling of the highest tier decks lowers, decks like this are able to, you know, give them a little bidness. So don't forget about Black Wings. Next up, we have a twofer, right? So we have Doom King Ballardruck, and what I'm going to say is zombie control more so than like the zombie Orchist or the combo zombies. I think for here I'm going to talk specifically about control style zombies, and then also Lair of Darkness decks. So The biggest boost to this is literally that Super Poly is at 3 now. And both of these decks can Super Poly any deck. Does not matter. I mean, if they put more than one monster on the field, you can Super Poly them. Even if they put one on the field, you may be able to Super Poly them. And it may not be the best gain, but maybe in the battle phase, it's enough to OTK or whatever, you know? So, I think a big, I don't know. Like with zombies, with zombie control specifically, you have the rivalry with Zombie World Lock, which essentially, if you set that up and your opponent doesn't have a spell or trap out to that, they probably just lose straight up. They're only going to be able to get one monster on the field, and Ballardrock's able to negate / banish him should he activate any of his effects, making it very hard for any deck to kind of get around that if you set that up turn 1. And also, Lair of Darkness kind of doing the same, not the same thing, but having a built-in mechanic where you contribute your opponent's stuff as cost, so that effect can't even be negated, makes it able to, one, play going second actually decently well, and going first set up some very interesting disruptions that your opponent is going to have a very tough time trying to work around. When Lilith is going to be able to tribute an opponent's monster to get you another trap card that's going to help stun your opponent or, you know, work for you in the grind game, it becomes very hard for your opponent to play. Going first, you set up really cool disruptions. You play stuff like artifacts in this deck, very good. And then you have a boss monster in Diabolos that's untargetable and makes your opponent discard cards. So very, very good, very, very powerful mechanics that these decks are able to abuse. And I just don't think they should be slept on, especially Lilith, especially Lair. I think Lair is a special place in my heart specifically, but I don't think either of them anybody should be sleeping on, because any deck can get super polyed against either of these decks, and they may not be expecting it either. There. So there you go. Next up, we've got Paleozoics. I think this is one of the decks that I think people still like appreciate, and they still know that this deck is like fine, but I just think we just haven't seen it. We didn't really see it much last season at all. Maybe a couple tops towards the end of the season here and there, but it was like sprinkled in, and it was not a huge news thing like, oh, Paleozoics are back, oh, they're great again, like whatever. It was just like, oh, some Paleozoic player was able to sneak into top cut or whatever. Something like that, right? So people didn't really appreciate it. This deck's still good. I mean, it's slow and the game is very fast, but you win the die roll, you're going to have a very good chance to take a set. And with hand traps and some of the busted trap cards that exist in our game today, you still may be able to steal games going second, even against combo decks. I think as far as buff stuff, newer stuff that they've gotten recently, we do have Rising Rampage, which literally just came out like this weekend. Very nice little buff for this deck. We have Marine Cess support. Now, I will say, I don't think like Marine Cesses are huge for this deck. Like, I don't think you're playing the monster or the trap or like all three of the link monsters in this deck. But Coral and Enemy does make for a very powerful extender in this deck. It makes it so that Swap Frog combos become way longer, like and way more developed. You're sending 2 things in a turn. Like if you can just make a link 2 turn 1, you're gonna like send with Swap Frog when you summon him the first time, link him into Coral and Enemy, and then Coral and Enemy is going to revive him back. He's not once per turn, so you get to send another card, and then you're kind of just sitting pretty. Like you've loaded up your graveyard, you can extend, you can put up 1, maybe 2 toads in 1 turn, and you're just gonna be looking good at that point. Whenever you can just like make 2 toads with 3 or 4 back row behind him, you know it's gonna be a good duel for you. So definitely don't sleep on frogs. Totally awesome. Still, other than like Cyber Dragon Infinity, those 2 probably tied for like the best boss monsters any deck has in terms of XC's monsters. So don't sleep on it, man. Omni Negates are insane. So there we go. Let's keep on. And then the last deck I have here, number 1, is Prank Kids. This is a deck that I love. I love the artwork for. Not my favorite playstyle, but still a deck that I still want to get better with. I still want to learn just because I love the artwork so much. It's so good. I love it. Reminds me of like a zany children's cartoon. So cool. But this is a very, I guess, combo-oriented deck. The combos do take a little bit to learn and to master and to do in like a live duel, which is one of the things I think can deter people away. The learning curve is a little larger with this deck than it is for other decks. I think that makes it cool because it means if you are good with this deck, that's something to be truly proud of. If you can be successful with this deck, that's one of those things where you're just like, I'm a Prankins player and I'm successful. I win with Prankins, and that's one of those things. Like, dang, respect for sure. I don't think this deck has gotten a ton of support recently, but I do think like I have seen a good amount of people that have been shifting over to the invoked build for the deck, just because you have more in-deck options to search invocation, which essentially is just polymerization for you. You can set up more interesting boards with like Macabre and stuff. Slightly different boards, and going second, the deck's good too. It's just, I love the well-rounded decks that can go first and second. I love playing control decks, but control decks tend to not be as strong going second. So I do like any deck that does have that duality that can make a solid going first board, but also play into boards pretty successfully as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. I think that, well, so this thing kind of like Paleozoic, but even a little more. I thought for a little bit this deck was even at a higher level, at least considered by the player base, and I was topping, than Paleozoics have been. But they kind of fell off the map. We haven't seen this like at all, I feel like, lately. At least I haven't. Maybe they have been there and I just haven't seen them, but I feel like I haven't seen this deck at all, and I think that's going to leave like people just like forgetting about this deck. And then if it does pop up, I think if you do see it at a regional, it could catch you off guard. So definitely don't sleep on this deck. Definitely don't sleep on any of these decks. I think they all have incredible things that they do. Maybe they're not the best deck out there, but I think any of them can beat any deck in our tier 1 currently. And I truly believe that on any given day. But that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully this video helped you maybe consider some of these decks if you were kind of counting them out before. Let me know if you think I missed anything. I think there are definitely a couple decks I missed that I think a lot of people just are sleeping on, that are a little better than expected. But these are the 5 that I picked. Let me know your picks down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. So, peace. Thanks for watching. I love you. Dad.